I didn't live a small life because I wanted to. I lived small because I was afraid to want more. People like to believe that wanting more is greed, that it means you're selfish, ungrateful, never satisfied. It was never greed, it was fear. Let me take you back. It's late afternoon, the kind where the light turns soft and slow, as if the day itself is tired. I'm sitting by the window in my old armchair, the one my wife picked out decades ago because it was practical. My knees ache when I stand, so I don't stand much anymore. Outside, people walk by with purpose. Somewhere, life is still rushing forward. Inside, everything is quiet. When you reach my age, quiet stops being peaceful. It becomes loud with memory. I've lived what most people would call a respectable life. No scandals, no disasters, no dramatic failures. I worked steadily, paid my bills, raised my children, stayed married, kept my head down, did what was expected, said thank you when appropriate, didn't ask for much. And that's exactly where the problem began. From the outside, my life looked modest but successful. People would say things like, "You should be proud," or "You did well for yourself." I nodded, smiled, agreed. But deep down, there was always a quiet discomfort I couldn't explain. Not pain, not sadness, something subtler, like standing in a room that never quite warms up, no matter how long you stay. When I was young, I learned early what the world rewarded: hard work, obedience, gratitude, silence. I grew up watching my parents struggle, always worried about money, always telling me how lucky I was to have stability. "Don't rock the boat," my father used to say. "Be grateful for what you get." I learned to shrink my wants before anyone else could tell me they were unreasonable. I learned to call ambition being unrealistic. I learned to confuse humility with self-denial. Every time I felt the urge to ask for more, from my job, from my relationships, from life itself, I felt guilt crawl up my spine. Who was I to want more? Others had it worse. Others struggled. Others failed. So I settled, again and again and again. I took the job that felt safe instead of the one that excited me. I stayed quiet in meetings when I had ideas, because I didn't want to seem difficult. I accepted raises gratefully, but never asked for one. I told myself I didn't need recognition, that needing it would make me weak. I married someone kind, good, dependable, but we never talked about dreams. We talked about responsibilities, schedules, what needed to be done next. Our marriage worked because it stayed small, predictable, manageable. At night, lying beside another person, I sometimes stared at the ceiling and felt an ache I couldn't name. Not loneliness exactly, more like restraint, as if something inside me was constantly holding its breath. But I told myself this was adulthood, that wanting more was childish, that maturity meant acceptance. Years passed like this, decades even. I became known as reliable, the man who never complained, the one who didn't ask for much. People liked me because I was easy to have around. What they didn't know was how carefully I edited myself. I avoided conflict not because I was peaceful, but because I was afraid. Afraid that if I pushed, I'd lose what little security I had. Afraid that if I reached too far, I'd fall. So I stayed within invisible limits I never questioned. When my children grew up, I encouraged them to chase their dreams. I told them not to settle, to want more from life. I didn't realize the irony until much later. They left, built their own lives, called on holidays, visited when they could. They loved me, but they didn't know me deeply. I had spent my whole life being careful. It made me dependable, but also forgettable. Retirement came quietly. No celebration inside me, just the sudden absence of routine. Everyone said, "Now you can finally do what you want." The problem was, I had no idea what that was. Without deadlines, without expectations, without people needing me, I felt strangely exposed, as if all the distractions had been stripped away, leaving me face to face with myself for the first time. And I didn't like what I saw. One evening, cleaning out an old closet, I found a box of journals from my younger years. I didn't even remember writing in them. The handwriting was sharper, more urgent. The words surprised me. I want a life that feels bigger than this. I'm scared of settling, but more scared of failing. I wish I could ask for what I really want without feeling ashamed. I sat on the floor and read until my eyes burned. That was when the realization finally landed. I hadn't lived a small life because I lacked ambition. I lived small because I was afraid of my own desire. Wanting more meant risking disappointment. Wanting more meant standing out. Wanting more meant possibly being told no, and no had always terrified me. I had mistaken self-denial for virtue. I thought humility meant silence. I thought gratitude required suppression. But here's the truth I learned too late. There is a difference between being content and being contained. I wasn't at peace. I was restrained. I avoided asking for more because I was afraid it would reveal how much I actually wanted. Afraid that if I acknowledged it, I'd have to face how long I'd ignored it. At 79, I finally understood something painful. You can live responsibly and still live dishonestly. Not lying to others, but lying to yourself. I mourned the life I could have lived. The conversations I avoided. The chances I talked myself out of. The voice inside me I kept quiet because it felt safer that way. I cried, not dramatically, just quietly. The kind of crying that comes when you realize time is no longer generous. And yet, something unexpected followed. Relief, because maiming the truth lifted a weight I didn't know I was carrying. I started allowing myself small wants, simple things, saying what I preferred instead of always deferring, choosing comfort without apology, admitting when something mattered to me. The world didn't collapse. People didn't leave. The fear had been louder than reality. I don't have decades left to reinvent my life. I know that. But I do have honesty now, and honesty, I've learned, is its own kind of freedom. If you're younger than me, and you are, listen carefully. Wanting more does not make you greedy. It makes you human. Suppressing your desires doesn't make you noble. It makes you smaller. Don't confuse fear with humility. Don't confuse safety with fulfillment. Because one day, silence will give you enough space to hear the truth you've been avoiding. I was afraid of wanting. And if this story reached you early enough, maybe you'll be brave enough to want more while you still can. If this story made you pause for a moment, if even one sentence felt uncomfortably familiar, please don't scroll away just yet. Leave a comment and tell me, what is something you've been afraid to want? I read every single one. If these stories speak to you, if you don't want to face these realizations alone, follow this channel. And if you think someone you care about needs to hear this today, a simple like helps this message reach them. Sometimes one story at the right moment can change a life.